Hi
All right.
Anamika. Hi
Hi,
Deb.
Shabir.
Good evening.
Hello, students. How are you all? Nice to see everybody. Bhargavi, Satyam, Madhurima, Kundan,
Yes.
Hemant, Anamik. Yeah. And I'm familiar with Aditi's note taker also. So I think I think that's a good, smart thing to do when you can't make it. Yeah. Good evening, Kundan. Good evening. I think we had a good brainstorming, Shabir, last time. As I was telling you, we took one of these essays. Conformity is the failure of freedom, enemy of growth.
Okay.
And we did the same one-page brainstorming that, let's look at the topic, let's look at the intent, the paraphrase, the keywords, the implied wisdom, and bring out the arguments from it. And I
Okay.
must
Okay.
say the students did really well. I was just organizing their thoughts, but all the brainstorming, the ideas came from the students. So that's very, very nice.
Actually, the day the students understand that essay writing has a process to it. There's a step one, do this. Step two, okay, follow up with this. Step three, okay. It is not simply go write and dump whatever you know, and not simply dump quotes or dump some story analogy that is forced on the essay. That they understand the process of decoding the topic, thinking through the deep points or deep dimensions. They're home because the amount of content
Quotes or
they study.
some story.
uh, yeah, so I said
Yeah.
the amount of content they go through in GS optional. Okay, so it's not possible that they do not know content. Like, of course they can always have some uh, refinement in terms of certain topics and issues. Okay, so yeah, guys, you follow the process and diligently watch the videos on the course and diligently make sure that you are uh, you know uh, revisiting the videos 2 3 times, make some jottings. It's good enough. Hi Sanjashri, hello Prince, good evening. So just for the benefit of all our YouTube viewers, today we are going live on the YouTube also. Hi Sagar. So we have a proper essays course. It's a self-paced course with guided mentorship sessions live. Um, I'll recommend all of you who can find time and giving attempt in 2027, join the course as early as possible. Essay writing requires a bit of different mindset. The mindset you must cultivate is not something you can wait for the last minute. Okay. Anyways, if you can join, but we do have students here. Hey, hi Lakshay, Kundan. Good evening. So we start off there. I think
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, and I was
all waiting for us.
just
Yeah.
going to add to what you said that I was telling this to the interview students, Shabir. This time, several of them have qualified mains, and they're going to interviews. And I was telling them that look, mains has already tested your answer writing on subject matter capability, right? So when similar question comes up in an interview, and which is true for essays also, that when I'm asking you something on, let's say global world order or economy of India or anything, what I want to really know is how you think, how you approach the issue, and less about the subject matter itself. And it is exactly the same thing in essays that the content, and this is why last week when we did the brainstorming for the essay, the content all came from you. But the thought organization, the building of the arguments, the critical thinking to do that, that is what is needed for both essays and interviews. So essay is a great tool to writing is a great tool because it makes you think, it makes you read. I always say that writing comes from thinking, thinking comes from reading. So I think make sure you have a good habit, and it's not something that you can develop overnight. Hemant, yeah, okay, I will reply. I didn't, I missed your message somehow on Kafka's Metamorphosis. We will do, definitely, I'll respond to that. My apologies. But yeah, definitely let me know if I'm not able to respond. So many of you are reaching out to me on direct messages. Sometimes I miss a few, but please remind me. Okay, just don't, I'll not feel bad or anything, just ping me, spam me, whatever you can, and I'll definitely respond. That is what I attempt to do. So, yeah, Shabir, should we?
Deb, on the YouTube,
Yeah.
there is Ankit Om 9580. He has a question for you. Says Deb
Okay.
Sir. Yeah. So
Deb sir, when I read fast, I miss a lot of information and foundational understanding is missing, but it results in slow reading. या बेटा देखो ये स्लो एंड फास्ट का ना यही चक्कर है राइट दिस इज दिस इज द रियलिटी ऑफ स्लो एंड फास्ट दैट व्हेन यू डू समथिंग स्लोली mindfully you actually retain much more. Your objective is not to finish the book, right? So don't worry about, oh, I read fast or I read slow. The objective is not to finish the book. In fact, I have gained a lot more from books where I have put my focused energies in first 10 pages, spent a lot of time, and then realized that it's not a good book to read. That's also a learning. So don't worry about slow and fast. I think focus on actually giving time, doing it mindfully, then you will get the understanding. And even if you understand 2 out of 5 pages, it's actually much better. So foundational understanding will come from mindfulness. Okay.
yeah, I think we are too much invested in doing things fast rather than
Yeah.
doing things meaningfully. Okay.
Yeah.
फास्ट करके करना भी क्या है अगर समझ में नहीं आ रहा तो हाउ डज फास्ट मैटर बट या वेल सेड देयर इट्स माइंडफुल
Yeah.
रीडिंग that's important. Yeah.
And we live in a achievement culture, right? Everything about this culture is focused on achievement. That I did this, I did so many things. It's all like checking the box. So sometimes in checking the box we forgot to actually get the experience. So I think this might be another fantastic essay topic. Shabir, we're nearing on 80 assignments on the Telegram channel, and this is going to be
Wow.
probably my next assignment. How we forget to smell the roses. So, I was taking my young son to the zoo, and I noticed this. This is a facet of the digital culture, that he was so used to seeing National Geographic and leopards pouncing and lions jumping on elephants, that when he went to the zoo he was very, very disappointed. Okay, so he's like,
He wanted action.
yeah, he's like, nothing is moving. So his job was, okay, I went to the tiger, I saw the tiger, check. I went to the lion, I saw the lion, check. And in 15 minutes he finished the whole zoo, and he's like, let's go, done. Right? So unfortunately that's the culture, achievement culture. So don't worry about that when reading, please, right? Let us focus. So
Yeah, Dave.
lot said, Shabir. I think time to jump in. While I set up, I would love for you to set this up a little bit, talk a little bit about the character that we want to discuss today.
Yeah.
And I think he's an amazing person, and I think lot about him is misunderstood also. So I think if you can set this up while I set up my computer, I think that will be great.
Yeah. So the book that we have chosen for today is a pretty well-known book. I will not say very loved book, but very well-known book, very well quoted book. And in some ways, it is one of those important, you can say, aspects of how governance should be done. So what happened if you look historically in time, who was a good king? Who was an effective king? What is the dharma of a good ruler? Okay, what is the purpose of in a good governance? So we had a lot of morality around governance, administration. It was seen like compassion was a very important feature, empathy, taking care of. So there's a lot of religious morality linked to who is a good king. Good king is somebody who is forgiving. Good king is somebody who is brave, fights alone if the need be. Good king abdicates his throne also if required. Okay, so ye version tha, and somewhere the religious doctrines also preach this. Now this man Machiavelli, okay, a bit of history about him. Machiavelli is a person of those Renaissance times, 1400s ke time, living in Italy, but Italy was still not a country; it was a series of kingdoms. Naples, I think Venice was a kingdom, Milan, or call them as states. Okay, zamindari se hota hai वैसे. We have got Milan, you have got Florence. So Machiavelli belonged to Florence. He was not a king. He was actually a bureaucrat. He was one of those administrators, okay, in the court of the king. King to nahi bolenge again. He was a strong man, kind of a local zamindar types. Okay, the Medici family, very powerful. Okay, and for some reasons, Machiavelli was accused of treason, was accused of corruption. He put behind bars. He lost his job. He retired from work, went back to his farm, but he was frustrated. He was a man who knew action. He was a man who was always in thick of things. He was a man who was right where the power is. So a man of his nature to withdraw from active life and go farming, living in a village, he was frustrated. So Machiavelli is trying to come back to the king's court. So this book, The Prince, is more like a job application. And remember, the times he's writing in, although we know about Renaissance times as a great times, art, culture, scientists, scientific discoveries, paintings, Michelangelo. Okay. But the fact is, this time was politically very unstable times, full of treason, conspiracy, and and the bitter experiences that Machiavelli went through, because for him it was about survival. For him it was about how to claw back in and regain his position of influence. So he kind of discards the idea that there should be morality linked to good king. Good king is now all about how to manipulate. Good king is all about how to survive in power and hold on to power. A good king is somebody who is effective. It doesn't matter he is loved or not loved. So in some ways, Machiavelli is completely challenging the established ideas of who is a good king. I mean, if some of you are from PSIR background, you know about what's called as a philosopher king. And one reason why I think Deb and I thought about this is we are living in times when everything is about real politics. Okay, Deb, I always tell the students, your word hai, be pragmatic. Be pragmatic is a soft, smart word for essentially be manipulative. Okay, be pragmatic is more about ignore what's morality and get realistic. And realistic somewhere is okay about this backroom manipulations. Okay, so we live in those times. अब देखो क्या हो रहा है US में. Suddenly, all the gloves are out. Okay, morality be damned, human rights be damned, even decency be damned. Okay, as a con, I mean, if you remember that conversation or the press meeting, whatever you call it, between Donald Trump and Zelensky, where Vance is pouncing on him, you're not a grateful man. Okay, you lack gratitude. Okay, ऐसे कभी सुना था आप लोगों ने कि ऐसे भी बात हो सकता है at that levels of authority and power? Okay, that kind of words, we hear. Okay, that I'm going to slap tariffs on this, that openly. What happened in China, for example, the purging of the generals of the Central Military Commission in China. Okay, so we live in times where, okay, yeah, exactly, Hemant. The idea Zelensky should wear a suit. Yeah, I mean, it was seen as disrespectful not wearing a suit. I mean, who says this? Right? You might have the ideas, theek hai. But who says that? So Machiavelli का ये जो किताब है, Prince, it's like a series of suggestions of how a king can be good or how a king can be effective. Okay, and I'll recommend, if you don't read this, at least Wikipedia में जाके summary पढ़ लो. Okay, there are certain abstracts you can use, and you know what, Dave, when I was reading this book, I remember,
Yeah.
while it was not a good feeling, okay, not a good feeling, because openly telling us, अगर मारना है तो मार दो. Okay, openly telling कि it's okay not to be loved. Very famous. It's better to be feared than loved.
Yeah.
But I couldn't disagree with him. अभी भी अगर कोई पूछे मुझे कि sir, what do you think about Machiavelli? I'm at loss of words.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I do not know. Yeah, Dave, I've gone on introducing it.
No,
Setting up
I
the
think
system.
you did a fantastic job. In fact, I would say in today's world, you gave a couple of examples. In today's world, in fact, I feel Machiavellian is also something of a compliment, because the mask is off, the gloves are off, right? So Machiavelli actually said that, you should not be hated. You do all these things, but with your mask on, you have to put on a mask. And he talked about, and we'll see, he talked about actually the image or perception politics. But today's world, there is none of that actually exists. So let me dive in, and I'll spend a little bit of time earlier on to actually give you the themes, because our intention is not to read the book and finish the book. Like, one of you were asking, Ankit, I think you were asking. It's not to finish the book. It is to discuss the core principles that he talks about. So I think the first one is power versus morality, right? What is our concept of morality when we talk about power? So he delves into that. Then I think he talks about why good intentions fail, right? You can start with something good, but it might fail. So he'll tell you that what is actually going on. Why are your intentions failing? We are doing it with all honesty, sincerity, we want to help the citizens, but it's still not working. Then image politics, which we talked about. I think this is a key part of, he predicted this in 1500 something, right? Renaissance period. So give him some credit. He talked about something, that time. Then what I call fragile systems. So he's like, okay, after you are gone, will it break down? Will it completely get destructed because you have not set it up right? So, as a monarch, as a king, as a powerful person, how do you set up something that your children can take advantage of? Remember, he was, as Shabbir said, he was applying for a job, right? So he's this book is a letter or actually a book to this guy, I think Lorenzo Medici, I think
Medici, yes.
Medici families.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, so he's telling them how to make sure their, khandan prospers, right? Their, family prospers. Then adaptability is a key thing. Is like, okay, when the chips are down, how do you adapt to changing situations? This is something very interesting. So these are sort of the big patterns that you will see. Okay, and frankly, I don't think we should judge him. He's not a tool. Don't feel like this is moral versus immoral. I think he's talking about being actually responsible for consequences. He's teaching people how to rule, and actually a lot of that. And some people rule. There are different kinds of rulers, like Shabir suggested, but I think you will see these patterns in all leaders. Some patterns exhibited by current leaders or past leaders. You will see that experience. So
I'll interrupt, Dave. Okay,
yeah.
just one second here. Guys, if you look back at history in India, I think one of the most hated man, okay, at least the way we have this narrative, was Alauddin Khilji. But if you look at the systems of Alauddin Khilji, okay, his systems of taxation, his system of price control, the system of coins, okay, counterfeit, his system related to rents on the farmers. Okay, Khilji was a very, very smart administrator. In fact, it was Khilji's systems that ultimately was used by later kings, including Mughals. Okay, the Mansabdari system, essentially the Khilji system. Okay, the control of price, is what we are doing today. On the other hand, if you look at the benevolent man that Muhammad bin Tughlaq was, okay, he was loved, but absolute failure. Okay, market crashed. All stories of. So if you ask me, okay, or if you ask and think about this, who was a better king? Okay, now that's a question I'm begging.
Yeah.
So if we judge in terms of morality, or do we judge in terms of effectiveness? So even I have no answers here. Okay, so like Deb said, let's know there is one aspect of administration, okay, that works. Okay, and I mean, good, bad, ugly. If tomorrow, okay, somebody like Putin is able to hold Russia together and not it collapse, people have jobs, and he can assert Russian power, he's an effective king. End of day, if Donald Trump is able to get in the revenues, prop up the dollar, okay,
Yeah.
push back Chinese aggression, who knows? You still will judge him as effective king. Okay, so
In
I
fact,
have no answers here. Yeah.
yeah, you raised a very good point about Putin. Actually, if you look at from the perspective of the Russian people, he took power when Russia was nowhere. Now Russia is actually pushing to become a superpower, and its presence is felt all over the world. So think about what it actually means for the citizens of Russia. I'm absolutely sure he has a lot of support. So one thing we will do at the end, I will put this as a question, and we must do this as an end. Maybe we'll spend 5 minutes. Is do a little bit of Machiavelli versus Chanakya. Okay. I think this is a very important thing. There are a lot of similarities, but there are some important distinctions. So we will do a little bit of this towards the end. Okay, let us read. So, letter to Lorenzo di Medici. He writes the letter. I will, I have highlighted some things, I think 10 or 12 things that we'll go through. So it is a calculated offering, like Shabir was saying. Having thought over all I have learned and analyzed it with the utmost care, I have written everything down in a short book that I am now sending to your highness. Right? So he is sending a book and he doesn't have anything. So all he has is his wisdom. That's what he's sending. So that's how it starts. And the first couple of chapters is talking about sort of kings itself, like what kinds of states are there and what kind of forms of government. As Shabir was saying, we had different kingdoms, some republics, some monarchies in that day, Italy. So he's saying mixed monarchies. So he's talking about different types of monarchies. So he's saying again, this is the normal, natural way of things. A ruler is bound to upset the people in his new territories. So if you have claimed a new territory, you will upset the new people because you have occupied this with your army and you have given endless injustices consequent on any invasion. So you have invaded somewhere and you have troubled the people a lot. So not only do you make enemies of those whose interest you damaged when you occupied the territory, but you can't even keep the friendship of the people who helped you take power. This is for the simple reason that you can't give them as much as they expected. And you can't get tough with them either, since you still need them, because however strong your army is, you'll always need local support to occupy a new territory. So he is teaching kings when you occupy a new territory or kingdom, what to expect. You will not have the friendship of people, you will need local support and things like that. Let's keep going. Saying the Romans followed these principles whenever they took a new province. They sent colonists. They established friendly relations with weaker neighbors, though without allowing them to increase their power. They undermined the stronger neighbors and they prevented powerful rulers outside the region from gaining influence there. So now you are getting into foreign policy, right? So when I'm trying to take control of a state, how do I deal? It is not sufficient for me to just look at internally what is within that state, but look outside its boundaries and borders and see who are the neighboring countries and what is going to be their demeanor in terms of actions and their impressions of what's going to how it's going to play out. So let's keep going to the next chapter. So next chapter he talks about examples.
One suggestion to all of you, Deb, interrupting. That when you read these lines, okay, or when we're reading this, it'll be nice if you jot down or at least think of where this applies in current geopolitics, where this applies in current governance. Let's say they've talked about, how do we take care of neighbors? Okay, what should be India's right wrong ki baat nahi hai. I mean, do you see this applying there or not? That we better not have a very powerful neighbor while we maintain good relationship with them. Okay, we better not have somebody capable of a revolt. Okay, state may maybe while we have good, maybe federalism to evaluate karna hai, South Asian politics baat karna hai, or even otherwise. Okay, FTAs karna hai. So think of this and jot down. Okay, so that you can where to apply this. Yeah, Deb, I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, I think that's a great point. South Asian politics is a big part of the, that example. And, India's relationship with China, how do you, what position we should take and what position we should take with our weaker neighbors. So that's a great example. So here, I'll just keep going forward. He talks about two different forms of government. It's very interesting again from how do you deal with we were discussing about how do we deal with a country with a changed politics like USA, right? How with the form of government literally changing from true democracy to some sort of an autocracy. He says examples of two forms of government in our times are Turkey and France. Whole of Turkey is governed by one ruler or sultan. Everyone serves him. He divides his realm into provinces or sanjaks and sends administrators to run them, appointing and dismissing them as he sees fit. So he is the universal ruler. The king of France, on the other hand, is surrounded by many number of barons whose rights date back to ancient times, powerful barons who are acknowledged and loved by their subjects. So barons who are state chief ministers almost, who are loved. It's a very centralized versus decentralized scheme of government. So federalism versus state. And he says, looking at these two kind of states, it's clear that Turkey is hard to conquer. Okay, because there is a lot of allegiance to one ruler, but once conquered, very easy to hold. Okay, because there are no other rulers. France, on the other hand, will be somewhat easier to conquer, but very hard to hold. Okay, so and this is a very important thing in terms of your state versus the nation power, how much power we should decentralized, how much power in modern societies we believe in a decentralized way, but should states define their own rules, and where is the line, right? I thought this was
Dave, when I was reading this,
yeah,
what immediately came to my mind was the strategy that India adopted. We are a federalism with very strong center. The federalism is biased in favor of center. A classic case of how we tried resolving our 500 plus princely states, typical like France and the barons. We literally had to remove them. And while we have given federal rights, the states are not independent. India is a union of states. States which are divisible, but the nation itself is sovereign. So reading this, I could think of the Indian form. If I go by morality, probably I would have wanted all the states to be equal. All the states should have their own constitution. All the states should have their own flags, the typical American system. But this probably would have pulled India apart. Circumstances, जो conflicts थे, जो divergence था.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, classic case of India's unique federalism. Yeah, Dave, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. See, India, what works for India may not work for USA, and you can feel that culturally USA was kind of heterogeneous to a large extent. So these kinds of divisions work to a certain point, but now with the influx of different kinds of people, immigration is a big issue. Therefore, there is a lot of turmoil in that society. In our society in India, there is turmoil, but a different kind of turmoil, right? So we sometimes that integration doesn't work as well as we would like to, and therefore the societal aspects of what the consequences are. So again, Shabir, whenever I read this, I just come back amazed that there is so much juice here. Let's see a little bit more. So he says how to govern cities and states that were previously self-governing, right? When the states you invade have been accustomed to governing themselves without a monarch and living in freedom under their own laws, there are three ways of holding on to them. Okay, three ways of holding on to a state that you have created. First is to reduce them to a rubble. Okay, this is America going into Iraq. The second is to go and live there yourself, which is what in a lot of ways, Mughals did. They came from outside, but they lived here. They became the citizens of India. They became sons of the soil. And the third is to let them go living under their own laws and make them pay you a tax and install a government of just a few local people. So low touch versus high touch. Completely razing something to the ground, number one. Go and live there yourself and really take care of the people. And third is install a government and get taxes. So these are the three ways. So he says, since the government has been set up by the invading ruler, its members know they can't survive without his support. Once you have decided not to destroy the place, the best way to hold a previously self-governing city is the help of its own citizens. But he makes a distinction, I'll come to that. He says, once you have decided not to destroy it. Let's see what he says, okay? He says, the truth is that the only sure way to hold such places is to destroy them. And if you conquer a city accustomed to self-government and opt not to destroy it, you can expect it to destroy you. Rebelling, its people will always rally to the cry of freedom and the inspiration of their own institutions. So this reminded me of our own freedom movement, that eventually, taxation, oppression over a period of time, we said yes to our rulers, but we rebelled, and so many other places that happened. But if maybe they had destructed everything, they could have ruled for some more time. But this is an interesting perspective, I felt.
Dave,
Yeah.
I mean, knowing or whatever, the European colonizers did this.
Yeah.
What the European, Spanish, Portuguese did in South America. South America has, I think, less than 10% or something local populations. And Argentina has zero native population, zero. Okay?
Yeah.
So completely flattened. And the same thing happened with North America also. In North America, the native Indians were completely crushed. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they couldn't do that for the India. Maybe India had, a more organized history, not, the presence alone, better power structures. Okay. Yeah, I'm just recalling, I'm just relating what you're talking to, relate what you're talking about with history of India. Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's like when you study history, you become aware. Shabir, the very interesting thing, one of the interview kids told me, and he was a student of social studies. Okay, I think history honors or something like that. And he told me, sir, a lot of the problems of social harmony in India is because people are not studying social studies. Okay, so people are not aware of history, people are not aware of geography, people are not aware of economics, political science, these kinds of things. And I cannot agree more with this person, because that awareness is so limited, and
Yeah.
that shapes our, that's why we believe in propaganda, that's why we believe in WhatsApp University. But anyway, back to the book. Virtue versus fortuna. This is the core of what Machiavelli's book. If you, one thing you want to take away, you take away virtue versus fortuna, and you will have something to look forward to and use in your essays and other areas. So let's talk, let's figure out what this is. So virtue is not virtue as in virtue is more about skill, intelligence. That is what virtue is in this case. So these two concepts, right? Analyzing the achievements of great rulers, and he's talking about people like Alexander, Cyrus, and so on. We notice that the only part luck played was in giving them an initial opportunity. They were granted the raw material and had the chance to mold it into whatever shape they wanted. So he's saying that as a ruler, you might get a good opportunity, that's luck, but how you take advantage of that is your skills. So fortuna is luck, virtue is your skill. So skill versus fortune. So it gives an example. I found it very powerful. Moses hadn't found the people of Israel in Egypt, enslaved and oppressed, and in need of a leader to get them out of the situation. They would have never been willing to follow him. So he says they followed Moses because Moses found them. That is the luck. If Romulus hadn't been abandoned at birth and chosen to leave Alba, how could he have become king and founder of Rome? If Cyrus hadn't found the Persians ready to rebel against the occupation of the Medes undisciplined, effeminate after a long period of peace, he couldn't have achieved what he did. So he's saying to Medici that luck gives you opportunity. What you do with that is your own. Okay, virtue versus fortuna. Let's go to another interesting concept here. Violence and favors. So carrot and stick. This is how you deal with citizens. Is when do you use violence and when do you use favors or some sort of positive reinforcement. So he says,
Dave, before we go on,
yeah,
we have some comments on our dashboard. Okay. I just wanted we respond to them too.
Let's
so
do that.
Anjali Singh talked about what the British did after revolt of 57. Absolutely. They crushed the opposition. I think that's where the communal problem of India started. They sowed the seeds of distrust. Okay. And they crushed. You're right. Okay. And Hemant says if Indians gets educated, vote banks reduced. Okay, fine. Yes. So I'm reading your comments, guys. Okay. So yes, you right observation. And about this point, that the previous point, Dave, this fortuna versus virtue wala jo hai. See, there is a concept, something called as anti-fragile. Okay, Nicholas Taleb talks about that you have to be strong enough to even bounce back despite all odds. Your survival is not a matter of luck. The survival is about how you lay out the chess game, how you play it. Okay, challenges will be there. You might have one initiation of luck maybe. So I'm inclined to relate this fortune versus fortuna with what we are seeing today. The tariff war could be our opportunity. The problem of conflicts can be our opportunity. The problems of climate could be opportunity. So we can't complain about bad luck, bad fortune. Okay, yes, good luck can give you one initiation. Okay, see how you can link it. That ultimately, he says, it's about how you deal with the situation rather than God's gifted situation to help you. Those who have why to live can bear almost anyhow. Okay, Mant, yeah. You find a purpose and you work out. Yeah, Deb. I was just interjecting with relating it to what's happening around us.
Yeah. So let's keep going. I think virtue versus fortuna. And second thing is about violence and favor. So when to curry favor, when to get positive versus negative reinforcement. So get the violence over with as soon as possible. So he's saying if you are being hard on the people, get it over quickly, so that there'll be less time for people to taste its bitterness and they'll be less hostile. So if you have to kill them, if you have to do something, raise something to the ground, you better do that instantly. Favors, on the other hand, should be given out slowly, one by one. Okay. So the negative reinforcement very quickly and swiftly, but favors we do a little by little by little. Okay, and this, Shabir, you will agree, we'll do it with our kids also, right? So this is how we keep them in check, right? How we give them punishment sometimes, how we give them, positive reinforcement. So, so that they remember, so that they can be properly savored. Most of all, though, a ruler should have the kind of relationship with the subjects where nothing that can happen, good or bad, will force him to change his approach. Basically, don't make the citizens define what you need to do. Okay, you have to make sure they do what you want. It's a very important distinction in terms of statehood and leadership. If hard times demand it, your cruelty will come too late, while your concessions you make will be seen as wrung out of you and no one will be impressed. So in a hard time, if you want to save money, tax more, be a little ruthless, um, then it will not work. So again, how to keep, so we talked about state, and how to conquer states. Now he's talking about citizens and how to keep them under check. Okay, let's keep going. So the next important concept of this book centers around different kind of armies and mercenaries, right? What keeps the army together? How do we put the forces, the important forces inside my state? So states might have some powerful elements, not just the citizens, average citizens. So we'll see what he says about that. He says mercenaries and auxiliaries are useless and dangerous. If you are counting on mercenaries to defend your state, you will never be able to be stable or secure. Because mercenaries are ambitious, undisciplined, disloyal, and they quarrel among themselves. So, make an army not using mercenaries and auxiliary forces, but something of your own. Yeah, Anjali, that's a good example. In fact, it works to certain extent when you are giving them incentives, like ISI does. It gives incentives to mercenaries and make them work. There are several examples in history where you have seen that kings used mercenaries, but it came back to bite them. A good example where it turned the other way was for Alexander. In Alexander's case, he actually created his Macedonian army out of mercenaries, but he's said to have inspired them on the first Persian war, where he actually stood up, and that's supposed to be like his defining moment, where he stood up, talked about the glory of Macedonia and the purpose of why the Greeks must rule the world, and how he brought that whole thing together. So Alexander's story is a fantastic use case of leadership, how it grew using those opportunities that virtue versus fortuna. He was given some stroke of luck, and his mother helped him initially wrest power, but what he did with it is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a great example.
The example of mercenary Deb would also be Pakistan and Taliban. Okay, so Taliban were nurtured by Pakistan, were nurtured by US. Okay, Taliban were created by the US, by the CIA, and they turned back on them. Today, Pakistan has tough time dealing with Taliban, the border conflicts there. And you know what? Osama bin Laden was the creation of the US, and goes on 9/11. So जब आप ये बात करो ना अपने current affairs discussions में, pull this out. Even Machiavelli was wary of these mercenaries. Okay, so Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that goes back to Soviet control of Afghanistan, invasion of Afghanistan, and funding the CIA did to these insurgency groups. Um, yeah, so absolutely, it's so relevant. That is what strikes me about this book, that this was written, can you imagine, 500 years ago.
Wow.
And we say technology changes everything in 10 years, right? But imagine the lasting impact of a book like this. I don't think books like Art of War or The Prince, these will ever lose their significance, because they say something about the um, human condition, or human, what being human is all about. So I think, yeah, Kaushik, you are right. Right. Putin, Aditya, you're talking about lateral entry versus, yeah, I mean, and Hemant, yeah, Kautilya book on Mandala theory is also relevant. Absolutely, Arthashastra is so relevant today. It is amazing. A mercenary army of Russia. And one of you raised the point about, I think, yeah, it was Anjali who talked about Pakistan, Shabir. So I think um, that's kind of goes back to the example you gave. Hemant talked about um, Kautilya using spies or mercenaries to destabilize others, which is a very key point, that you could use them effectively, and which is what ISI tries to do in India. So let's keep going. The next piece highlight I have is, says, in the same way, he must not be concerned about the bad reputation that comes with the negative qualities that are almost essential if he is to hold on to power. So he says you will need some negative qualities to keep you in power, and you should not be concerned about the bad reputation that comes with it. Okay? If you think about it, there'll always be something that looks morally right, but would actually lead a ruler to disaster, and something else that looks wrong but will bring security and success. So he's like, don't worry about criticism. So we say, right, a lot of the leaders we have, oh, he didn't have morality, how could he do that? I think a lot of them have internalized this, that it's okay, people will say things, and I have these negative qualities, but these are what makes me successful.
Dave, I recall one conversation I had with one of the history professors way back.
Yeah.
He made a very sharp observation, comment, which I remember. He says, the morality standards of what's good, what's bad, and the gods we worship are very different for the middle class and the ruling class, are very different for the normal common folk and those in power. Okay.
Yeah.
बहुत अलग है. What's right and wrong, how we perceive, how most of us perceive. I mean, if you ever had any doubt, you must see this unfortunate, you can say, unfolding of Epstein files. Okay, I don't know if you guys are aware of what's happening. Okay, who's who of the world? Leaders, kings, business tycoons. Okay, I mean, no matter how much they defend themselves, the fact that they were corresponding this man, okay, who was evil personified, okay, and what drove them to do what they did. So, I mean, they're just telling you that morality is a very subjective thing. What's right, what's wrong, okay, for the ruler, those in power, and most of us. Yeah.
Yeah, we use the word middle class morality, Shabir, and I go back to a lot of sort of art house cinema movies in the 80s and 90s that did so many movies about middle class morality, that it's kind of ingrained in us, and we think differently. You are absolutely right. And when you have money and power, you think differently about what all of this is. So okay, let's keep going. I think next highlight is chapter 17. I think each of the chapter names, exactly, Shabir, this is what we tell our students to write, that your arguments should be clear phrases and they should be boxed and headlined in essays, right?
Good one. Yes, yes, yes. Very well demonstrated. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Machiavelli has done exactly that. Look at it, cruelty and compassion, whether it's feared, better to be feared or loved. So he already makes his point and he begs us to keep going, right? Read more. A ruler must not worry about being labeled cruel, where it's a question of keeping his subjects loyal and united. If your objective is loyalty, unity, and keeping your state intact, you should not worry about being called cruel. He will prove more compassionate than the leader whose excessive compassion leads to public disorder, muggings, and murder. So it's like you have to be cruel to be compassionate. In the end, what is compassion? And this is, I feel like, he is making a very big point here, because sometimes what we think of compassion, it's actually not immoral in my view. I think he's making a very pragmatic point that if you are a ruler and you are responsible for the lives of many, you need to be cruel sometimes, and that doesn't mean that you are compassionate. You are actually being more compassionate, because it's like one versus many, right? How do we weigh the impact of lives? So you don't want public disorder, you don't want muggings, murder in your state, so you must establish the rule of law. So is it better to be loved rather than feared, or vice versa? The answer is one would prefer to be both. But since they don't go together easily, you have to choose. It's much safer to be feared than to be loved. So he's saying, so long as you are generous and, as I said before, not in immediate danger, they're all on your side. They have shed their blood for you. They would give you their belongings, their lives, their children. But when you need them, they turn their backs on you. So basically he's saying that people are typically ungrateful and unreliable. They lie, they fake, they're greedy. I wanted to save this for the last. So look at how he's characterizing citizens. He's like, if you want to rule people, remember that they are almost always ungrateful, that people forget what you did for them. Tomorrow they'll forget. They're unreliable. You'll think they'll do something, but they'll do something else. Lie, they fake, they're greedy. This is reality of humans. You can't disagree with him. And this is what the consistent feeling, I think we've both talked about it, Shabir, that we get in this book, that you cannot disagree with this person, whether you like it or you don't. Hemant is saying bitter medicine work better than eating sugar on daily basis. Okay, that's good. He's saying that this is India's election scenario and politicians promise they'll bring development. So I think you can now look beyond the promises if you understand what is going on, right? The need for power, and you know why Shabir was saying that it has become so brazen these days is because the complete belief that power is the ultimate thing, that power legitimizes everything. So now people are bending in front of the president of United States, no matter what he is doing. They might say here and there, but largely it is a question of compliance. So power legitimizes, the pursuit of power, everything will be forgiven. Aditya says, yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
please.
Shabir.
Yes, I was
Aditya,
telling Deb.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
One thing that I have wondered, okay, or why I wanted this to be read out, guys. All of you are aspiring to be bureaucrats. You'll be part of an administration. You'll be part of a decision making. Okay. While I agree with what Machiavelli says about the common man on the street, the common masses, how they can be fooled, how they can succumb to propaganda, how they can be led by their nose, how they can be induced into voting. But what I want is you, as aspiring bureaucrats, as future leaders, must see these manipulations of our leaders. You cannot be blind to what is happening and you behave like common man. I mean, I'm amazed when bureaucrats and administrators and the smart ones. You are the smart ones. You are the knowledgeable ones. You are the more analytical. I call Warren as India's highest intellectual quotient per square feet. Okay, so in this group and community with all the knowledge, you cannot see what's happening, and you pledge yourself to a leader like you are a common ordinary man. That is the painful part. The same thing in Russia or US or China, whatever. There has to be one section of administrators, congressmen, the MPs, who should see what's happening. Okay. So ultimately, आप कर पाओ नहीं कर पाओ, कम से कम blind allegiance तो नहीं होना चाहिए. And then use your forces, your power, your network, okay, where you ensure that right things happen eventually. At least have the courage to see, okay, and call out what's happening, okay, in the name of good governance, in the name of peace, security, in the name of justice, okay. So yeah, so that was okay. The common man is expendable. That's why he's
Yeah.
the common man. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is also could be the reason, looking back at history, why so many benevolent kings never had long dynasties. It is possible that they did not pay attention to what Machiavelli is saying. Right. So let's
Yeah,
keep
Deb.
going. I think we have a few more. So we'll cover this fear versus love. Going back to then the question of being feared or loved, my conclusion is that since people decide for themselves whether to love a ruler or not, so you cannot make them love you. They decide whether to love you or not. It's the ruler who decides whether they're going to fear him. See how he thinks. He's saying, look at it, who is making the decision of fear and love. The love decision you cannot make as a ruler, that the common man is taking. But the fear decision you can make as a ruler, and you can make them fear you. So you control what you can control. Okay? So man will base his power on what he controls, not on what others have freedom to choose. So you go ahead based on what you can control. So control the fear. Do not worry about being loved. But one thing he says, you must take care, and this is where I felt like he has a moral tinge to some extent. He says, as I said, that people don't come to hate him, and you could think that he's also being very pragmatic, that eventually um make sure that you are not hated by people, that they still see some rhyme or reason why you did certain things. Very interesting. Ruler and his promises. So I think one of you were talking about rulers and how they sometimes make us promises but don't keep them. Let's talk about this. So in the meantime, Hemant says, Deb Sir, it's like you've said, why good intentions fail is bureaucrats or common ordinary man want to bring a change for good reason, but who are in power think that this challenge their position, so they find some way to divert it towards the negative view. Absolutely. I think what you must then figure out as a bureaucrat is how to get it done while making sure, this is what the balancing act a lot of bureaucrats do in their day jobs, that they try to find ways to get good deeds done while satisfying the people in power, and that's a tough act. Yeah, so he was rejected by his crush. They absolutely. Ishan says honest voices are there in every organ of government setup, but the numbers are negligible as compared to corrupt ones. That's why genuine changes face so much resistance. So, Ishan, I think good thought. Think about it. I think they also call this the bystander effect. It's not that people are evil. Maybe the evil people are also in a minority, but the majority of people do not say anything. They are bystanders. So that's something to think about. I think in the book somewhere he talks about them also. But let's talk about this particular aspect, promises, right? This is very interesting. So he talks about lion versus fox. Lion cannot defend itself against snares, like traps and things like that. Fox cannot defend itself from wolves. So you have to play the fox to see the snares and the lion to scare off the wolves. So use cunning and use force, both. So lion stands for the force and fox stands for the cunning. Hence, a sensible leader cannot and must not keep his word if by doing so he puts himself at risk. So if you have made a promise, not like Pitama Bhishma, okay, you made a promise. So he says, let it go. If it puts you at risk, don't worry about your promises. And sometimes the reasons that made you give your word in this first place are no longer valid. So अच्छा वो मैं तब बोला था कुछ और था तब माहौल कुछ और था अब माहौल कुछ और है, right? So very very interesting. Says all men. Yeah, sure.
Quickly, this is
Yeah.
a typical example of US-Pakistan relationship. वो कब दोस्त बन जाते हैं, वो कब they fall apart, they again become friends, they again fall apart. Okay, it's actually crazy. Okay, and India tries to be consistent there. Okay, so yeah, and emerging Pakistan-Bangladesh relationship.
Totally,
Okay.
totally.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, if all men were good, this would be bad advice. But since they are a sad lot, they won't be keeping their promises. You hardly need to keep yours to them. It's like you're dealing with unreliable people. Why are you so worried about keeping your promise? They can't keep your promise, their promise. You also can't keep yours. So now we are kind of coming towards the end, but let's see some of his lasting thoughts. I think I have one in 26. So this is sort of an appeal, and having made his case, he talked about cunning versus force, he talks about virtue versus fortuna, he talks about power versus morality, so many dichotomies, and then finally he's making an appeal. Okay, so this is what I always tell all of you, that no essay is without a dichotomy. No essay, there cannot be an essay without a conflict. So essays are all about some level of conflict happening somewhere, and that is why the need for the essays, that is why the need for the argument is. So I think if you can understand in an essay what is the core conflict, is his power versus morality, Is it, you know, fear versus being loved? Find that, and you will figure out some great content for your essays. Yeah, Ishan, lion versus fox bipolarity is analogous to circulation of elites theory given by Pareto. Yeah, I think cunning versus force, right? So when to use cunning, when to use force. Um, I think Hemant has a similar point. Can be seen in movie Simba, in which the brother of Lion King, who is Scarface, clearly knows when to stand brave and when to retreat. I think, yeah, this is another way of putting it. That some say that, you know, you sometimes you have to live to fight another day. So, okay, let's go see this. So, appeal to conquer Italy and free it from foreign occupation. So he says, going back over everything I've said, I've been asking myself whether the time is right in Italy right now for a new ruler. So he is making his case. I've told you all these things, that the time is there for a new ruler that would give a shrewd man with the right qualities the chance to impose some form, winning honor for himself and doing good to the people as a whole. My impression is that a lot of things are running the way of a new man, so many in fact that I don't know what time was ever more right than the present. So he's making a case that please do it now, right? You've learnt all this. This is all I have to give you. This is the thing that you need. So get down, become the Moses, become the Cyrus, become the Alexander, and you know, take charge of Italy. So this was the book. I would spend a couple of minutes, Shabir. I was thinking on my first question, that you know, we started with
Yeah, yeah.
that. What do you guys think about um, Machiavelli versus Chanakya? I think let's pause. We are a little above time, but let's pause for 4 or 5 minutes. A lot of you are still out there, so I want you to think and tell us, you know, in comments, um, what aspect of Chanakya did you find resonating here, and where do you think it was different? Um, Prince says they're not bipolar. Fox and lion are complementary. Yeah, that's a good take on the English word. I think bipolar is not the same thing as um, you know, being uh, you know, two essential parts of something is not two different sides of something, right? So but there is some difference in what force does and cunning does. So it's sort of a little bit subjective. That's why I didn't call that out. But okay, tell us, Chanakya, did you see, I mean, he was also a proponent of realpolitik.
Maybe I'll feed one point here, my input here. Now, one difference between Chanakya and Machiavelli was perhaps the purpose with which they suggested what they did. Okay, Machiavelli, like we said, was applying for a job. Machiavelli was trying to please the king. Machiavelli was trying to make himself useful and argue that he can be a good bureaucrat. But Chanakya was building an empire. Chanakya was not pleasing the king. He was in control of Chandragupta Maurya in that ways. Okay, so yeah, Hemant, just a thought. Okay, I can be wrong here. Just to get some juices flowing from you. So that's one reason why while there's a lot of overlap. Yeah. So guys, yeah, let's see what are your points.
Yeah, Hemant says one was pawn of king, the other was king maker.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Prince says Chanakya was cunning while
Exactly.
Machiavelli explicitly shrewd. Okay. Okay. I
ठीक है,
think
ठीक है.
Aditya, you hit the nail on the head. Machiavelli was king centric, whereas Chanakya was citizen centric. I,
Yes, yes, yes.
I think that's a very, very important distinction. Machiavelli seems to be more brutal, Aditya says. He seems to give more importance to be in power. Chanakya more smart,
Yes.
aware ruler's approach, saving civilization culture. Yeah, you guys are getting closer. Sustaining the system, yes. So, sustaining the structure and the system and the, building something lasting civilizational versus power for the sake of power. I think that's where we are getting out to. Any other distinctions? Shabir, any lasting thoughts?
Yeah, lasting thoughts, I think I'll stick with my confusion where I started with. While all of this does sound, fairly relevant, I still
Yeah.
can't decide if I want to promote this idea. Okay, this question of how will we use what Machiavelli says? Okay, so my instinct is that I will use Machiavelli more from the perspective of explaining what's happening around us, rather than offer Machiavelli as a solution. That's one thing. While I talk about Chanakya, maybe I will focus more on his focus on dharma, his focus on an efficient system, his focus on how to keep the state running. At the same time, the king has to be smart, if not merciful. So that ambiguity of mine, I think it's still valid. I can't take sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the concept of
Did Deb drop off? Yeah, guys, I think Dave got disconnected. He should join back in. Oh, there you are.
yeah.
Yeah, Dave.
Okay. No, I think okay. I think we don't need the share anymore, so we can let that go. But yeah, I had the similar thoughts that Chanakya was at his core, I think, a statesman. He knew how to run the states. His only objective was not power itself, and that I felt is the core distinction of the two. That whatever I have understood. By the way, I don't know if you all know that the Arthashastra document cannot historically be traced back to one person. So this is also something people don't understand about history and how history is put together. That we know that somebody like Chanakya lived. There are mentions of him. There are things that are attributed to him, but the entire Arthashastra, there is no proof that it was written at one point in history by one person. It has the historians actually think that it was written at multiple times and added to by different people. So I think this is one thing that Chanakya himself talked about, Shabir, and I think that is one of the patterns is institutions over people. Okay, so this is what Chanakya talked about, because when he established Chandragupta Maurya as king, he also established the Council of Ministers. and he had a very democratic way of running the monarchy. So it is actually incorrect to call it monarchy in its true sense, like the Turkey kind of monarchy in this example. Chandragupta Maurya decided, or they together decided to, delegate some power to the Council of Ministers, and they were a very powerful council. So Chanakya himself talked about the value of institutions, not worship of gods, right? So he wanted to take that out of the mix. But power does not believe in that. Power actually believes in concentration of power. And this is what is happening in the authoritarian societies and so many other modern day examples we can provide. So that's another distinction. I thought that one stood for institutions, the other stood for power.
Yeah,
So
lovely. Yes, yes, Deb. I appreciate that. Yeah, you're right there. And uh, Machiavelli and Chanakya, I mean, I see one trace. Both of them see the people largely as gullible, untrustworthy. People should be ruled over with laws, with strictness, and both of them talk about the importance of the king not being gullible. King has to be smart. That's why Chanakya talked about spies. He talked about developing nexus with tradesmen, with merchants. So your role as a king cannot be moral fool. King has to be above, okay, all of that. But yes, the purpose is different. The purpose of Chanakya was the state, the people, okay. The purpose of Machiavelli was the person, the king, who had to be preserved. Yeah, great, yeah.
yeah, I think one more comment. Dharma is duty based and not dictative, while pragmatism is dogmatic and gives no room to think. I think I agree with the first part. The second part, think how you want to reword it. Pragmatism is not a dogmatism. I think it's the opposite of dogmatism.
Yeah.
But um, but yeah, I think you were talking about kind of Machiavelli's kind of pragmatism. Hemant says, Sir, even Chanakya mentions merchants are not allowed to accumulate wealth as it lead to power concentration who can challenge king. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think this you will understand, Hemant, you're making a very critical point that we sometimes glorify ourselves, right? Because Chanakya is considered part of our history and is an Indian, and he did so many smart things. We naturally consider him to be better. This is not actually true. This may not be true. He might look better to us because it validates our thought process. This is a very tough wisdom to swallow for many people, and I can see that uh, those sentiments every time, right? There is something that is about our scientific innovation or our sports athleticism or whatever excellence, any form of excellence. We tend to think that we are better, but that's just we have to be rational. We have to know
I mean,
when
you may not speak about it, but at least know what's happening. Is my point.
yeah.
Okay, there are a lot of Machiavellian manipulation in India that is supported with the idea of being pragmatism. With the same pragmatism in China or in US is dismissed as immorality. Okay, so I understand it's difficult to write about certain things given the circumstances we live in. बट अवेयरनेस तो होना चाहिए ना कि क्या चल रहा है.
So Shabir,
Yeah.
this thing came up in one of the interviews, and we're talking about India versus China, and the student said, "Sir, China was able to, progress because it didn't give any importance to freedom of people, and it had a authoritarian rule, and it could." So then we were like discussing at some later point in the interview about Human Development Index. And I asked him, it's like, okay, you're talking about these autocratic countries. What is the Human Development Index, HDI, of those countries compared to ours? And that revealed a very different perspective that we might think that, whoa, we are good because we are following a democratic process and we, have these things, we have these liberties and all that. But what does good mean? How to quantify good? So I think it is only good thing in my view is being rational and understanding things in their proper way and proper. And I say that as UPSC aspirants, especially, you need to be um, critical, analytical, and have that perspective. So don't be ever jingoistic and say Chanakya was, he knew it all, right? I think if you say something like, sir, Arthasastra, or however, was written, but as historians say, it's difficult to attribute. So I think those will give the person in front of you immediate view that this person does not accept what he is told. He's a skeptic, he's a rational, he's a true person to be to depend on, be reliable. And that's a very important characteristics of UPSC or any bureaucrat.
Yeah.
Hemant says
Yeah,
being
they.
too
Yeah.
rational on Twitter in India cause threats from various. Okay, don't worry. Let's not get there. I think Shabir, we can close. We have gone way ahead of way above time.
Interesting topic. So I mean,
Uh,
and guys, like Deb said, our intention is not to read the book. Our intention is that we at least initiate it to you. Okay, I'm सब कोई पढ़ते हो Machiavelli. It's an English verb. It's an English noun in some ways. Adjective है. Okay, but we do not know what he said. So we hope we can excite you with these conversations, that you have the interest to go back and at least read something about what he said. Okay, if we can do that, our purpose is served. Thanks, Deb. I love these discussions. I mean, we don't even realize. I don't realize it's almost 30 minutes past what our commitment was. But I hope the students also.
Likewise. And I think thanks to all of you, you guys make it worthwhile. So Shabir and I, of course, love these discussions, but I think with you all coming and taking something away, it just makes it worthwhile for us, right? So we are not just discussing over a coffee table. We are also helping you, bring some more excellence into your writing. So all the very best.
And enroll students, patiently see the videos. It's all demonstrated, lot of examples. और एक बार नहीं 2-3 बार देखो. Make your jottings, okay? And we're always there to talk to if you have doubts. Okay.
Yeah.
And YouTube guys, if you have not enrolled, enroll. You'll not regret it.
Yeah, I think one request to everyone on YouTube: if you actually have taken the Edukemy course before, you should automatically get the link in your dashboard, in your groups. So definitely join us on Zoom, so you can actually take advantage every Thursday. So I'll still do a few open so that everybody can take advantage. But I think if you've already taken that, I would suggest you join through Zoom. That will be helpful. But thank you, everybody. It was very nice. I enjoyed it. Shabir enjoyed it. We had a good time. Like always, we will have a good time every Thursday like this. So long.